Welcome back. Detentions at the Broadview ICE processing facility have reportedly dipped to only 4 people. This is after a judge's order to clean up conditions and with the departure of Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino. But it hasn't stopped the contentious scenes outside. And last Friday, a group of clergy members were arrested during a demonstration. And joining us now is Reverend Michael Wolf of the Lake Street Church of Evanston. Reverend Wolf, thank you so much for speaking with us. So we know that Friday things did get heated, especially in the morning. There were dozens of arrests. Tell us blow by blow what happened to you out there outside Broadview.
Sure. I was gathered with a bunch of clergy to be able to raise our voices against what we imagine and know to be a spiritual emergency, because we know the conditions that are in Broadview are abhorrent and they amount to torture, whether that's denial of medication or that's denial of spiritual care, whether that is 1 meal a day or unsanitary conditions. We know that to be true. So we were there to demand the release of folks there, the closing of the facility, and the right to pray with our neighbors. These are our neighbors who have been kidnapped off the streets. We're gathered there to pray and to make those demands known. And when we did make those demands known and when we moved into the street, we were immediately met with physical violence. I was grabbed and thrown to the ground and kneed in the back with 4 officers on top of me. And you probably saw a picture or two of that, because that's been everywhere.
I do think we have some tape of that.
One of the things I want to say is that when we were gathered there, our hands were not clenched in fists. Our hands were raised in prayer. The folks who were there were 100% committed to nonviolence and peace. And I was telling the officers there that I'm 100% committed to nonviolence and peace, and I meant them absolutely no harm. But that didn't stop them from using violence on me, of course.
And I know that since this happened, it's kind of been revelatory to you. What conclusions do you draw by the fact that things did escalate so violently?
Well, I think the officers there have a lot of unprofessional conduct to answer for. Again, I want to keep the focus, although there are many victims of police assault here, and I'm one of them. We were there for the detainees. We were there for the people who are unjustly kidnapped off our streets, our neighbors who are taken there. But I'm telling you, it was perhaps 3 seconds before the first pushes, blows that were given to the protesters. It was immediate violence, and we were met with immediate violence. I think that's unprofessional. I think that there's definitely ways to handle sort of tense moments, but I don't think that pastors and other clergy folks and faith leaders from various traditions gathering to raise their protests is the calls for people to be violent in that way.
Now, was the reason for the arrest because you were on the street there and outside of the barricaded, designated First Amendment zone?
I mean, you'd have to ask my arresting officer who slammed me to the ground what the reason was. I can tell you he pointed at me and said, "He's going." And indeed, I was going. So I was targeted. I'm sure they didn't like some of the things I was saying to them. I'm constantly talking to police and letting them know that they have a decision to make, just as we all have a decision to make. And it's so important that we keep that in mind, that we all have an ethical frame and place that we can be in, and actions that we can take. And the police don't have to protect the concentration camp that's in our backyard. They don't have to do that. They can put down their weapons. They can choose a different way, and they can choose a path of peace. And I believe they can choose that path. And so I'm constantly talking to them about that. And I'm loud and I'm tall. And eventually I was targeted and said, "Hey, he's going," and I was going, for sure.
When we know that clergy has gone to Broadview, clergy has certainly spoken up. We know the Roman Catholic Church has been speaking up. Why is it important for people of faith to be demonstrating in that manner?
Look, people of faith, the best of religion. I'm actually kind of a bit of a skeptic about religion. It sounds sort of strange because I've devoted my life to religious institutions. But religion can be good and it can be bad. It's a tool. It's something that we put into the world and we use and we make meaning with it. And religion at its best is able to help us make ethical decisions, understand how we're supposed to be in the world and how we can bring our values into the world, how we make meaning, all that kind of stuff. And religious leaders are so important in this moment because they can tease out the difference between what is right and moral and what is legal. Not everything that is legal is right and moral. In this country, slavery was legal. That doesn't make it that it was ever right or moral in any sense. And so clergy have always been a part of teasing apart, well, some things that are legal are not moral and not ethical, and some things that are illegal are right. So perhaps, if this sort of evidently the protest that I did, the claim by the state is that it was illegal, but I'm proud of what I did. And I'm proud of my folks who were there, who were going to raise their voice. And I think it's really important that we continue to do so.
All right, Reverend Michael Wolf, thank you so much for joining us. And, we know that the operation has calmed down for now, but they certainly have indicated that they might be back in full or even greater force. So we know that we'll be talking to you again. Thank you so much for joining us.